Welcome to the Tension Podcast. I'm your host, Donna Dupont, with the Archipelago of Design. Joining me today is Captain António Mourinha. He is the Innovation Advisor to the Chief of the Portuguese Navy, a naval officer by trade. He has served at the Patrol Boat Squadron, Fleet Command Staff, and the Allied Maritime Command. He led the planning of operational experimentation with Maritime Unmanned Systems and the exercises of the REPMUS series. Welcome, António, to the podcast.
Hi, Donna. It is a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can share with you and with the people that listens to your podcast my ideas, my thoughts, and a little bit of my story.
That's wonderful. We're so excited to have you here. And just for our audience, just from background, I had the opportunity to travel to Portugal in early October and get a tour of the REPMUS exercise. And I was so impressed and excited about this type of exercise and experimentation with technology and prototyping with all these different experts. And so I was so excited to meet you. And we're thrilled to have you on the podcast to share your knowledge and your experience. So tell us a little bit about you, because you have a very interesting background. So tell us a little bit about you and your work and how you became involved in this type of exercise and innovation space.
Well, that is a interesting story because, in the Navy, my beginning was as a navigation officer on board the ships. And I was also working on maritime law enforcement and fisheries enforcement. And then I joined the Fleet Command in 2010. There I was responsible not only for the coordination of the ships of the fleet engaging in fisheries enforcement, but also for the planning of a special kind of ship that we had at that time. That was a landing craft unit, LCU, as we say in short in the military. We use a lot of acronyms, as you might know.
Yes.
So, because I was responsible for this LCU, I got in touch with an activity that we were having at that time that was an activity linking the Portuguese Navy with the Porto University to work together in the development of a new type of unmanned underwater system, underwater vehicle, so autonomous underwater vehicle. That was called SICON. And I had to plan the engagement of this LCU in this kind of small event, 1 week, later some more days, where we would have Navy experts on mine warfare working with the Porto University to trial and test this first prototype of this system. So I had this first engagement, and very soon I realized that we would need to evolve this event into an exercise because there was the opportunity to invite other people from foreign navies, from foreign research centers and industry. And in the next year, we created this as an exercise. At that time, it was not called REPMUS. It was only REP, that was standing for a rapid environmental picture. So the main idea was to collect data from the environment. And this was the story of the beginning of REPMUS as an exercise. We had then several, so I was involved in this for 4 years in the Fleet Command. Then I went to sea as a commanding officer of a ship, and I was sailing in Azores, and I had the chance to participate as a commanding officer of a ship. In REPMUS, that was made in Azores in 2015, I think. It was the only one that was not organized in this area where we are in Troia. Then I went to the Navy staff, where I was responsible for drafting requirements and for experimentation and capability development. There, I had the opportunity to pull up the exercise and make the chief of the Navy, the officer scheduling the exercise, in order to allow for the entire Navy to benefit from this concept. I was in the naval staff until 2019. Then I moved to the MARCOM, the Maritime Allied Command, where I was in charge of Operation Sea Guardian, a maritime operation in the Med. But there we had an admiral, the commander of MARCOM, Admiral Kit Blount, that was very keen on developing unmanned systems. So by chance we met, and we both had strong ideas about the creation of a NATO exercise to also bring a stronger NATO community into this field and help evolve, develop capabilities, and especially advance the use of these systems in the NATO community. And we had the chance to work together there to create a new exercise called Dynamic Messenger. And we attached this exercise to REPMUS. In 2022 was the first edition. They were back to back, and in 2023 we had it again. When I finished my tour at MARCOM in 2022, I returned to Portugal, and I was nominated director of the Portuguese Navy Center for Operational Experimentation, CEOM. That is a special place where we have also a free technology zone. I will talk about this later. And I was director of this center for 2 years and doing the whole coordination or leading the planning of REPMUS. And it was a great period, very interesting. The exercise grew a lot in the last few years. We have a chief of the Navy, Admiral Gouveia Melo, that is an innovator. He loves these kind of things. He gave a great support and insights to help all these developments. And so it was great so far. Now I am his advisor for innovation, and I'm keep pushing on innovating in the Navy, because we need really to do things in a better way, take advantage of the technology, of the new procedures, to be more efficient and more effective. So this is, I would say, a nutshell, a little bit of what I did in terms of working with unmanned systems in innovation.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And that's quite the journey and the evolution, and also the evolution of what we know today as REPMUS, because it was a constant, as you were saying, iteration of just building over time. And now you've developed more of a community around it, which is absolutely fantastic. So let's dig into a little bit more about Maritime Unmanned Systems. So this is your area of expertise. So for our audience who may not be familiar with it, what do we mean by Maritime Unmanned Systems?
Well, that is a good question. In NATO and in the navies, we talk a lot about taxonomy, because we need to agree the meanings of the things. Otherwise, we think that we are talking about the same thing, and we are not. So this terminology, Maritime Unmanned Systems, was defined in 2019 when a community was created that was called the Maritime Unmanned Systems Initiative. This was a NATO community that was created in 2019, as I mentioned. I was involved in the beginning of this community, because the year before, in 2018, we, the Portuguese Navy, together with the NATO Center for Maritime Research and Experimentation, in the NATO Naval Armaments Group, we organized a conference that was called Maritime Unmanned Systems Interoperability Conference, the music.
Oh.
And one of the outcomes of that conference was the creation precisely of the Maritime Unmanned Systems Initiative. This was a NATO initiative joining 18 nations that agreed to work together in cooperation to evolve the development of maritime and systems, or systems that would support the navies in the maritime domain. So one of the first things we did, in the first meeting I was there, it was in La Spezia in Italy, we agreed what should mean maritime unmanned systems. And we agree that maritime unmanned systems are all unmanned systems that are able to support maritime operations. So it doesn't matter if they are air systems, surface systems, underwater or land, as soon as they are designed or they are useful to be used in support of maritime operations, we can call them maritime unmanned systems. So it's important to mention this because some people sometimes think that when we talk about maritime unmanned systems, we are talking about only the ones that evolve in the water. That is not the case. So in NATO, this is the definition we have for maritime unmanned systems.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's really helpful to know that, there's it's a broader definition of these systems and this technology. So when you're with these exercises that you've been, doing, right, to build, these new capabilities and these experimental type of prototypes, what's involved with the development of these exercises behind the scenes?
Well, this is a big effort because
Mhm.
in these exercises we have a large number of different entities participating, um, many of them with different objectives and goals into the exercise. So we need to do a lot of negotiation. We need to understand what are the systems that actually we will have to experiment, and then plan what we call vignettes. A vignette is like a story that is behind the use of the systems. So the vignettes usually are tactical situations where we can then test and trial the systems. And because one of the most important things that we do here at REPMUS is the build-up of interoperability amongst the allies and amongst the participants. It is important that in the same vignette we have unmanned systems from different nations, from different origins, to be able to work with them together in the same space, in the same area, in support of a same operation. So this is something that is key. But this is a very small amount of the things that we need to do to plan and execute an exercise like this. There is a lot around logistics, a lot about communication, and communications. Communication is is different from communications because communication is we talk with the people and we need to share ideas and discuss, but for the use of these systems, we need a lot to work on communications. That is the ability of talk with the systems, exchange information, collect from them, give orders. So this is a very important important part of what we do here. Um, the interoperability about command and control, giving orders, development of new tactics, techniques, and procedures, engage with the universities and the industry to understand where they are and discuss with them where we would like them to go to push forward the agenda of development of these systems, and then test and trial what they have available and give feedback and report on what is actually the current status and give feedback on how they should evolve the system. So this is a very complex thing. And if you think that in the last REPMUS we had here 23 nations, more than 200 entities sponsored by the nations I'm talking about industry and academia. We had more than a couple actually, several NATO organizations, from centers of excellence to NATO commands and research centers. So this is really a huge effort. We start the planning of these exercises very early. So actually, the first event that contributes to the planning of REPMUS 25 is going to happen in December, so in a couple of days. So it is the post-exercise discussion of REPMUS 24. We use this discussion about what we did in 24 to leverage on how we need to evolve and how to do better for 25. We use this information to draft the first document that is needed for an exercise like this, that is the exercise specifications. The exercise specifications set the objectives and the main goals, and basically, in a broad term, what we are going to do in general. And then we have a battle rhythm of meetings and of conferences. After this, we have 3 more conferences. The initial planning conference, usually in February, then the main planning conference in around May, and in end of June, beginning of July, we have the final coordination conference. And these are conferences of 5 days where the people discuss what are the objectives and how to put them in action. So this is, well, a little bit of the flavor on how we do this planning.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful, just to give people just an understanding about what's involved with putting together something of this magnitude. It's very large scale, but because you've been doing this for a while now, you have a system in place and you're continuously improving it, which is amazing. And what I really picked up on that I loved was the fact that you are prototyping with industry, but also academia and research centers. So it's very collaborative across different areas of expertise. So can you tell a bit more about what that's like for that cross collaboration with those that are more military mindset versus academia and industry?
Yes, that is key, and is at the core of the process we have in place. Because what we are talking here is about developing new capabilities. And the capability in the military, it is about the development of 8 different factors. We call it the .MLPFI spectrum. So this means doctrine, organization, training, material, personnel, leadership, facilities, and interoperability. All of these factors all together constitute a capability. And to have a capability, we need all of them. I can give an example. If you have a very good equipment, but you don't have personnel to operate the equipment, you cannot say that you have a capability, because you just have material. If you have equipment and you have personnel to operate it, but that person is not trained, they don't know how to do it, you don't have the capability either, because you cannot operate it. If that stuff is not interoperable, you cannot participate in joint operations or combined operations, which mean operations with other nations and with other services. So you cannot use it in the battlefield anyway. So you need to evolve all these steps in a seemingly way to get to a capability. So this is key. And when we talk about one of the most important pieces, that is the material, the equipment, you need to be able to draft what we call requirements for what you need to fill what we call capability gaps. But one of the things that we learned in the process of drafting requirements is that when we do the requirements only in a top-down way, which means that is the user that says, hey, I need this and that and that, very frequently that drafting of requirements doesn't match what is available and what can be done. I'm talking about what we can say, what we can call the art of the possible. So, especially when we are talking about new equipments, you may ask for the moon, but maybe you cannot get to the moon, but you can get something not really the moon, but in an altitude where you can actually achieve what you need to achieve, and then try to aim to higher position later on. So this encompasses the need to talk with the people that produces the equipment, and those are two different types. One are the industries that they produce equipment that are ready to use, or at least in a later stage of development, but also the research centers and academia, because those sometimes develop a lot of prototypes that are actually something that we would like to see in operations, but that are not mature yet. So we need to work with these two type of stakeholders, and this linkage between academia, industry, and end users, in this case the military, that let them know what we need and how to do the operations. It is at the very core of the development of REPMUS. Since the beginning that we are working with these three types of entities in something that now is called the triple helix. So this is a kind of a fancy name for these triad of entities that link up and evolve the technology development. From the end user side, we also use this experimentation to evolve the other part of a capability. And together with industry and academia, we evolve also the interoperability piece that is involves two sides. One, it is the technology interoperability, that is the ability of the technology to be compatible one with the other, and the procedure interoperability, that is the ability to work together in the same way, using the same terminology, giving the same type of orders and understanding them. So this is what we do here. And as I mentioned before, working with academia and industry is key to ensure that we don't have only a top-down approach, but we have also a bottom-up approach, where we look at what exists, what is not mature yet, but can be leveraged up, and use these to draft requirements that can be actually achieved, and sometimes get surprised by things that are out there and we were not aware, but that may be used in support operations.
Right. Right. Thank you for sharing that. That's such I love the core of that model, because when, you study innovation, they talk about you need these diversity of stakeholders and perspectives and expertise. And oftentimes that doesn't always happen, where some people are innovating in their own bubble or their own silo, and they're missing out on a lot of different potential knowledge that can be out there that can really, as you said, address these capability gaps. And I love that you're like very proactively addressing interoperability right from the beginning, which is so important. And so that's wonderful to hear. And I love your quote, "The art of the possible." I really love that, because that's, we want to know what is possible. Where can we push and on the innovation side and to expand our thinking. So I absolutely love that. So the Portuguese Navy has an operational experimentation center called SIOM, right? So tell us a little bit about that center and how everything comes together at the center.
Yeah, so this center was created in 2018 when we realized that we would need a special site and a special base to support the growth of REPMUS and to also support the need for conducting operational experimentation in the Navy. So this was an effort that was made by Admiral Mello at that time, that he was fleet commander in the Navy. I was also helping on that effort from the naval staff, and we started the creation of this center. Then this was supported by several chiefs of the navies, um, and eventually it grew bigger and bigger, because one of the things we did from the beginning was collecting requirements for what should a center like this have. And this requirement collection was made joint to the entities participating and supporting REPMUS. So everything that we saw that was needed and was required to support this kind of events, we managed to install it in here. It is not yet um, finished, because this is a never-ending story. When you engage in this type of challenges, that is promoting innovation and looking at the future, you cannot stop. You are always improving and making it better and better. So I think we have here a very good center. I thank all the partners and people that has been working with us, because they are part of this effort. They have supported us in setting the requirements for what we have here. But I have to mention another thing, is that the center itself, being a military center, it is responsible for managing something that is not military in its essence. That is what we call a free tech zone. So we have here in Portugal a regulation that creates the possibility to have free technology zones in Portugal. The SEOM is responsible for the first ever free technology zone created in Portugal. Is the free tech zone Prince Henry the Navigator, the big planner for the early navigations of Portugal, and a great innovator. He reshaped the way how we were using navigation methods. He created a new type of vessel that was called the caravel, and we thought that he was a great inspiration for this free technology zone. So this area, it has more than 1,000 square miles, so it's a huge area in the Bay of Setúbal. It has maritime space, airspace available, land space. In the maritime, we can go as deep as 1,300 meters, so we can use the underwater space, the surface space. So this is very proper to test all the types of these systems that we call Maritime Unmanned Systems. To have this free tech zone in place, we needed to link with our regulatory agencies. And we have three regulatory agencies that are working with us, are our partners. One is the Air Authority. So the Air Authority works with us. They provide us the space, and they also are responsible to work with us in order to check the airworthiness of the UAVs, unmanned air systems, that we are testing here. In case the UAVs that we are experimenting are low TRL and they don't meet the airworthiness level that are required to fly in the general airspace in here, we have some segregated areas where we can use them nevertheless. If we think that they can fall, that wouldn't stop us to use them. The other two entities that are partners are the Maritime Authority. They are very important to allow us to segregate maritime space when needed for experimentation purposes. And the other authority is the Spectrum Authority. Because I told you in the beginning that a lot of what we do here has to do with communications and the radio spectrum that is nowadays very crowded. but is essential for the use of these systems. So we work with the Spectral Authority, Portuguese Spectral Authority. They are partner. They look at what we do to be sure that we don't harm other users. And having these three entities as partners is a win-win situation because they allow us to go beyond what is currently in the regulations.
Yeah.
But for them, it's also very good because they can look at the future. They can start understanding what are the regulatory challenges they will face in the future. So it's really good for them as well.
That's fantastic because sometimes, yeah, regulatory, people that work in regulatory advisory roles may not be always familiar with what's happening on the innovation side and where those questions are coming up. So it's so fabulous that you have that connection through the free tech zone, arrangement there. So what's the advantages of having the free tech zone for your prototyping work? Like, does
Yeah.
that give you a
So,
lot of flexibility? I would imagine it
yes,
would, right?
the free tech zone has two main purposes. One is to give flexibility on the experimentation. So giving us the possibility, as I mentioned before, to go beyond the current constraints of regulations. So we can do this, and we can do this in a fast way. So we have a direct contact with the regulatory agencies just for this, and they provide us answers very fast. So we can segregate their space in a very fast way. We can grant the use of a frequency in terms of spectrum in less than 1 month. So this is really good because allow us to move faster and to go where we need to go in a safe way as well. Because the agencies, they always look to the safety of what we are doing here to be sure that going beyond the regulation doesn't allow us to go beyond what is safe and secure.
That is very,
Um,
very good point.
And the other reason why we have the free tech zone is to bring the civilian community and the industry into this space. So the free tech zone is there available for the industry conduct their own experimentation. So they contact us and they book a period to come and to conduct experimentation with their things. So this is really important because sometimes industry don't know how to link up with the military. So we created a framework where they contact us. Of course, there is burden sharing on this side. So the industry usually have to pay part of the expenses we have here to conduct experimentation. But this is very useful for them because if they want, we provide them all the experimentation feedback and we help them to plan and prepare the experiments. So this is very valuable. The demand for experimentation from this civilian part is growing more and more, and now we need to balance it with what we need to do also on the military side, because we are working also with other nations from NATO to allow them to come during the year and outside of the REPMUS period to do experimentation with us.
That's great. Thank you for that. That helps to understand kind of the role of the center in opening up all of this possibility of really testing and understanding technology and collaborating in a very different way. So that's I love that, and that's very exciting to hear about and to learn that this does exist and there are models that are out there doing this kind of work. So for those who are really interested in innovating in their space, and this could be for anyone, whether they're military or, civilian sector, private sector, what advice would you have in terms of a way to start in terms of testing out new technology and in a safe way, but maybe if they're just beginning, how could people start their own prototyping type of exercises in their organization?
Yeah,
What would be your
that's
top
what you
tip?
mentioned. Yeah, that's what you mentioned is, I think it is very important because REPMUS is a big event. And this is an event where we expect the people that are coming to come here already with some knowledge on experimentation. So, from our perspective, is really important that every nation, every navy, have their experimentation facilities and have the possibility to, before coming to a more complex scenario and exercise, where a lot of integration and interoperability needs already to be in place, that they can test and trial these things beforehand in their spaces. So one of the things that is important, really important, is to connect and link with their ecosystem. So they need to know their ecosystem. They need to speak to the people. I'm talking about universities, industry, talk to them and understand what are they doing, and discuss with them what is from our perspective more valuable from what they are doing. Allow them also to talk about other things that we might think that are not interesting in the beginning, but maybe if we think out of the box, they might become game changers because they might shape the way how we are doing things. So first advice, it is knowing the ecosystem, discussing with them, negotiating with them, and try to identify common goals and objectives. This is key because, as you said before, no one innovates alone in their own corner. So that will never happen. That will not be innovation. It's just one playing alone, and that is not how we think that innovation can take place. Secondly, it is really important this relationship with the regulatory agencies. They need to be part of the process. So if you are going to conduct experimentation in your site, in your nation, please link up with these agencies because they will ensure that you are doing experimentation in a safe way, not only for you, but for other users. For example, when we talk about the use of radio frequencies, you know that radio frequencies may affect a lot of equipments. So if you do jamming or these things, you might not cause harm for yourself, but if it's not well used, it might harm other people. It might, for example, interfere with pacemakers and this kind of stuff, depending on the area and on the place you are using it. So this is really important as well. Then the third, and maybe the last, because I could talk about recommendations for a long time, but I think the third more important thing is don't mind about starting small. Everything that is big started small. So start small, build on what you learned and what you did. Don't try to make at the beginning very big things and very complex things. So this is the way to have a growth that is sustainable. Otherwise, you might miss some stuff. You might have some failures that, in some cases, may cause harm to your projects because, in the end of the day, there is always someone paying the bill, and they want to see results, and they don't want to have accidents and problems. So start small in a safe way and build up on what you did last time.
Thank you for that. That's a wonderful wrap up in terms of like just tips for anyone who is really interested in innovating. and sometimes might feel like they don't know where to start or how to approach it. So that's very helpful for our audience. Thank you. And I love the fact that you talked about starting small, and that it's okay to fail in the beginning. It's probably expected because you're learning, right? And as you learn, you'll continue to improve and iterate, and then you'll get stronger over time. So thank you for that. That's wonderful. So before we close the podcast, do you have any final thoughts you want to leave your audience with respect to innovation in today's really complex world?
Yes, I would like to mention a couple of things. One is that we cannot stop innovating, and innovation is not made by decree. So it is really important to give some freedom to the people that thinks out of the box. It is very difficult to create innovation in a very controlled space. So it is important to give some degree of freedom from the people and look at the base, use as much as possible a bottom-up approach. This is really key to have innovation. And I will pick up in something that you said before, that is about the failure. Failure is part of the business. What is important is to fail in a way that is safe for everyone. Because failure is a way to learn. When we talk about innovation, it's all about learning. And every time you fail, what is important is, and this is something that you like to say, is fail cheap and learn fast. So we try to trial things exactly for this purpose, to learn, to understand, and don't disregard the mistakes, because the mistakes are part of the learning process. We need to record them and use them to do better next time. So this is key for an innovation process. So I think that our society need innovation. There are still a lot of innovation challenges. It is important that those challenges are dealt, and that is one of the reasons why I think that regulatory agencies have a very important role in here, because there are legal challenges, and when we talk about unmanned systems, artificial intelligence, autonomy, there are a lot of those that need to be addressed, and we need to understand that we cannot stop this flow of innovation, but we have the chance to shape it, and shape it in a way that is sustainable and that will help us evolve as a whole. And I think that this is key and is one of the most important things.
That was a fantastic interview. I learned so much. So thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and expertise today, Captain António Mourinha. I really appreciate it.
Donna, it was my pleasure. It was really interesting to be here with you, sharing these ideas and insights. And I hope it was useful and that the community of Tension Podcast enjoy. Thank you so much.